All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the two-game Saturday slate that we have for you guys, and honestly, it's a pretty fun slate. My Green Bay Packers are going up against the Chicago Bears, and honestly, it feels like a lot of the Bears fans are pretty scared about this matchup, whereas for the Green Bay Packers, it's kind of just another day at the office. Just need to take care of business, win a playoff game, okay? Then we have the Rams versus the Panthers. I was cheering for the Panthers to win, or not win, but make the playoffs, so I'm kind of happy for them there. And then we also have the Rams, who I would either the Niners or the Rams. If I had to choose a team right now, I'd probably pick one of those two teams to win the Super Bowl as it currently sits right now. But really, guys, it feels like such a toss-up this year, which to me gets me very excited about the playoffs because it truly feels like any team can win it, which is fun. But with that, guys, I think I set the table pretty well for the playoffs and the DFS slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, let's start out here with a game preview for both of the games. So we are going to notice that the early game is going to be a 10.5 point spread in favor of the Rams. I would kind of agree with that. It is a decently high scoring game though, 46.5 total points. So that kind of tells us that Vegas somewhat thinks that the Panthers are going to be able to somewhat keep it close. Then we jump into the Packers versus the Bears. Packers are going to be 1 point favorites. And then we look at the game total, decently high scoring as well, 45.5 total points. There are some reports there that it could end up being a little bit snowy there. I don't think that's going to change the outcome or the total of the game, really. Maybe it changes the outcome, but the total of the game as it currently sits right now based on the forecast, I don't see that playing a big difference. All right, guys, so with that in mind, we don't necessarily have like a specific game that we need to be targeting via the game total, although we do know that Vegas does think that the Rams are going to be playing with the lead. So to me, that kind of leads me to believe that we want to begin to one of Kyren Williams or Blake Corum. Now, I am much more inclined to get to Kyren Williams than I am Blake Corum because, well, it ends up being a very solid matchup, I think, for Blake Corum. He did have 13.2 DFS points against the Panthers in the first game. Snap share wise, he continues to outsnap Blake Corum about 60 to 65% of the snaps compared to like 30 to 35% for Blake Corum. That being said, the opportunities end up being pretty close. We actually saw Blake Corum out carry Kyren Williams last week, which is not too out of the norm, although Kyren Williams continues to be kind of the leading snap getter in terms of targets. So it does feel like it could end up being a situation where we're just trying to get lucky with a touchdown, although Kyren Williams is likely to score a touchdown, so we're going to end up on him. And I do think DST-wise, if we were playing Kyren, we probably do want to be ending up on the Rams DST. That being said, if you want to get to Blake Corum instead, or if you can't fit Kyren in there, I wouldn't sweat it too much. Just go to Blake Corum. Hopefully he ends up scoring a touchdown for you. And then really, I think the toughest part about this whole slate is going to be figuring out the tight end situation. Okay, the tight end spot's actually pretty tough. Colson Loveland has been someone that's went off for the last 2 weeks. I would say mostly due to Rome Odunze being out and somewhat of the run game not necessarily being all too good. Okay, but a lot of targets, been productive. Can't take that away from him. But the thing with a Ben Johnson offense is he is kind of designing plays and somewhat games for specific players. Because Rome Odunze has been out, it has been him. We did see in some situations, it was DJ Moore. We saw it be Luther Burden as well. Okay. It's a complete guessing game as to whether or not it'll be a Colson Loveland game with Rome Odunze being back there for them. At the same time, it's also going to be a guessing game as to whether or not the Rams are going to run out a lot of 12 personnel. We do know that Davante Adams is going to be back for them in this game. And so I kind of think we just want to be playing Davante Adams with him being back. Okay, he had a very good game against the Carolina Panthers in the last game, but that was mostly due to 2 touchdowns. I don't think we can bank on that, but overall, if you take away the touchdowns, he still ended up having a pretty decent game, almost 10 DFS points there. So my point is, I don't know if we can necessarily trust the Rams tight ends. And on top of that, guys, we got Tyler Higbee back last week. He looked extremely good. And guys, so tilting. I got to share a best ball story real quick for you guys. So that last Rams game, which was the Arizona game, the catch that Puka Nacua had at the end of the game that for some reason they decided not to rule a catch. I've been over this before. At the beginning of the season, that would have been a catch. It really wasn't until the Isaiah Likely touchdown call that they reversed that they started to kind of go the other way with catches like that were close, where it's like clearly a catch, but if you want to look at maybe the fine print, you could maybe talk yourself into it not being a catch. But when you're just watching it inherently as a fan, you're like, oh, that's a catch. Had that been a catch, if the game goes into OT, which I would assume it would have, I probably have a very good best ball season. End up in first place in one of the best balls, winning over 10K. Another segment of that would be that I got 0 points out of my tight end position. Guess who I had in that contest? Tyler Higbee as my quarterback. So do you know how freaking tilting it was to see him go off in week 18 and not week 17? Being back from the IR that week and not week 17, that was extremely tilted. It was. I've never been more tilted. Like, that was so annoying. Anyways, though, he did go off. He did look good. And I was surprised at how much he played, over 60% of the snaps. And then Ferguson's going to be back as well, their rookie tight end that's really stood out over the last, few weeks. Parkinson has continued to play well. I would put my money on Higbee to be the tight end that we would want to get to the most for the Rams. But really, we should be getting to Parkinson and Higbee as well. Ferguson, I don't think we necessarily need to get to him, but he's pretty cheap. And on top of that, guys, Tommy Tremble had 90% of the snaps and about 83% route share last week, ended up scoring a touchdown. He had 4 targets, 3 receptions, 38 yards. Not that many air yards. Okay, guys. He ended up with about 21 air yards, which we don't necessarily love, but he's clearly too cheap. And he's kind of been the one I've been getting to the most just because we kind of know what to expect out of him. Maybe we get lucky with a touchdown. At the same time, we also do have Luke Musgrave there, who I also don't like. Okay, but he's someone we could potentially be looking at as well. Like, it's just a guessing game at tight end. And that's really the tough part. That's going to be the make or break portion. I think we're just going to get lucky with a touchdown. And that'll be the difference of the slate, of it being a good slate or not. Now, on top of that, guys, I do think quarterback is a little bit interesting as well, because Matthew Stafford, I think a lot of people are going to try to get to, as they should, okay, but he didn't necessarily go off against the Panthers. The Panthers are a good defense, and so I don't like the price tag of him. I think it makes so much more sense to get to either Caleb Williams, who had a decent game against the Packers. I say decent because we know a little bit of his production was pretty fluky in that game, the onside kick, and then getting a touchdown there. That's pretty fluky, okay, so like he did have a good game, ultimately. That's kind of been their season. But I would say, like, really the first game against the Packers is kind of what we maybe should be expecting. That being said, the Packers are without Micah Parsons. Their defense has looked pretty bad recently as well. And I just kind of think the Bears are going to choose to rush the football more on the Packers. That's kind of a safe way to attack them, especially after how poor they looked really against Minnesota last week, but also against Derrick Henry. I think Ben Johnson's going to see that and just try to rush the football against the Packers, and I think they will be successful. And so that being said, I think the quarterback play is Jordan Love. Okay, Jordan Love has had multiple weeks to rest now. Gets a very solid matchup here against the Chicago Bears. He's looked good thus far this season when he's played. I don't think anyone would deny that. Assuming the weather's going to be good to go, I really like him. The issue with him is he is kind of hard to stack. Like, we're going to play him, but we're just going to be looking at Christian Watson as kind of the easy stacking play. Watson's clearly too cheap, given his production and air yards that he's had. Even against the Bears in that last game, guys, he ended up with 3 end zone targets in that game. Half of his targets were end zone targets, so we like that there. But then after that, like, it is a guessing game. Do we go with Dobbs? Do we go with Jaden Reed? Do we go with maybe Luke Musgrave? And that becomes tough. And then for what it's worth, I don't mind the idea of also getting to Bryce Young. Bryce Young, guys, against the Rams, ended up with 22.5 DFS points. If he were cheaper, I would much rather get to him. But, talent-wise, we're just going to play Love. Ultimately, I expect him to rise to the occasion here and look good as he has the whole year. But, I mean, if Bryce Young was like 4.7, be a little bit more applicable to play him. But after that, this is what I don't like, guys, because I do think Josh Jacobs is going to be the easy play for us on the slate as well, running back-wise. He says he's felt the best he has over the past 6 weeks. Basically rested now 2 straight weeks as well. Basically 3 straight weeks. He didn't play all too much against Chicago as well. And so I think he's going to be good to go. If he's going to be good to go, he's going to be one of the favorite plays on the slate. Okay, and then it becomes easy because then we're playing Kyron and Jacobs, likely to get a rushing touchdown on both of them, and we feel pretty good about that. Because after that, I don't want to necessarily have to deal with Swift. Will he have a good game or not? Again, I kind of think the Bears are going to try to rush the football against him, so I would prefer him next, Swift. He's just more difficult to get to. We saw Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard kind of split the work in the last game, which is something I kind of expect in this game. I already mentioned Blake Corum. And then Kyle Monangai, he's okay, but he is starting to lose work to Swift. They are still doing the every other series type stuff. He's fine. I don't mind him, but I also don't feel like we need to get to him as well. And so we jump into the receivers. It is pretty simple. You're playing Puka and you are playing Devontae Adams if possible. That being said, guys, I could make a good argument for why Tet is a good play. I can make a good argument for why Roma Dunze is a good play. I can make a decent argument for why Luther Burden would be a good play. But to me, looking at the pricing and the way he's looked recently, Jalen Coker is going to be the play I want to get to the most, and especially given the fact that he had a good game against the Rams the last time out. And we also see, guys, 92% of snaps, 94% route share, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 54 air yards. Like, he has kind of been the receiver one-ish. It is McMillan, but Coker is obviously someone that he really likes. he being Bryce Young. So I really like him as a click. It is a bit of a guessing game. I think this is a way for us to raise our floor, target Watson, target Adams, target Puka, and then we get Coker. So I will say I don't necessarily like not being on the Bears. Okay. I really don't. But they do spread out the wealth, and it is a bit of a guessing game. Now, I do think a Chicago Bears player will be in the GPP winning lineup. Again, it is kind of a guessing game as to which one it'll be. I would put my money on Rome Odunze, but we just don't know how he's going to look. And so if it's not Odunze, I think it would be Burden. But if it's not Odunze, that also probably means Colston Loveland is playing better. You guys get the picture there. It is a little bit more difficult. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at for some lineups there. We'll go ahead and see what the 9-to-5 lineup builder is telling us are going to be the top builds, guys. I'm going to take tight end out as flex and eligible at the same, and I think that's because we don't need the value on the slate, guys. It's a 2-game slate. I don't think we need that. So I'll take that off. We'll click run, and we are going to see some interesting builds, I will say. So Caleb Williams is getting stacked with Luther Burden. I'm okay with that. Okay, I don't think we want to go this crazy, and I also don't think we need to get to Colston Loveland, although I don't hate the idea of going I want to get to Jacobs, but I do think we want to begin again to Kyron or Blake Horn. I probably will be setting some sort of rule to get to one of those two in all my builds. Okay, I think that ends up being a good route to go. But I do like the fact that it's going Puka and Devontae Adams. Now, it is getting to McMillan instead of Coker. Again, I like Coker a little bit more. Maybe that'll end up being a little bit of an edge for us. And in terms of total ownership, you can kind of make some chalky builds here, as you guys can see. I don't really care about the ownership as I'm recording this video. That is something I'll probably update a little bit more by Saturday. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I appreciate you being here. Make sure to leave a like on your guys' way out. If you guys would like access to that tool, the NFL DFS lineup optimizer, head on over to 9defsports.com. Get access to that tool plus much more for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.